Hello, beautiful.
Hi.
So, how are you today? I feel like we haven't seen each other in like forever.
Are we pretending like we didn't just see each other 2 minutes ago?
I know. Or that we weren't on live yesterday,
Yeah,
or that we didn't see each other this morning or
I
last
know.
night. Yeah,
Look at that. We're even matching today.
I know. But it's my favorite shirt.
It
I
is a really
feel
pretty
love.
shirt. I like it.
And I thought it kind of went along with the topic
Oh, I should have worn
today.
mine. I have a tank top that talks about love. Dang it. Missed opportunity.
Yes. So I'm Michelle Barone with Moksha Grace Coaching. And
Oh, and I am Christopher Owen with Wicked Wisdom Consulting. I'm a fractional CEO and operations consultant, helping business owners run their business. I'm also really into spirituality and mindfulness and all of those things, which is the purpose of me being on the show, is we have great conversations about all of these topics.
yeah. And having conversations is way better than me just talking to, you know.
Yeah.
So, what do? I do exactly this. So, what does this mean? Emotional liberation, help people understand their own emotions so that when they are in relationships, which if you're living and even when you've passed on, you're in a relationship, and
In many
what
relationships.
many relationships, and how can you manage your emotions, your expectations? We'll talk about that today, and so that you can improve your relationships. And what I coach on is learning how to get to know your inner family and have a good relationship with your inner family, meaning your internal family, so you can have better outer relationships.
Love it. The work
And
you
this
do.
includes, sorry,
I
didn't mean
was
to take
saying the
over.
work that you do is very impactful.
Why, thank you. It has been impactful in my life. I have seen tremendous changes, hence why I started wanting to help other people find the same changes and guide them towards that. Uh, I've seen changes in a lot of other people around me as well, present company included. So we like to have fun here on Moment of Presence.
That we do.
Uh, yeah. So, all right. Well, what we're discussing today are all kinds of relationships. So, this is the month that we're discussing life transitions, and we've gone through some interesting topics, some harder than others,
Yeah.
and relationship, partnership, situationship. I've heard.
I'm so
Um,
surprised to hear that from you, from your mouth, but okay. Yeah, I wasn't expecting that.
Shout out to Chris Minnow of Minnow Pond, because that's what he calls it all the time,
It,
is a situationship.
mhm.
Um, this can be your boss. This can be your kids. This
Not
can
a
be
situationship. That's
no, no, no,
specifically
not
romantic,
situation.
but relationships, what we're talking about today, can be. There you go.
Yes. Uh, and in relations, there can be situational situations that have to be managed.
Mhm.
And how do you are you reacting to the situations and to the other people's emotions, or are you responding from a place of being centered, and being your true authentic self?
Mhm.
um, and do you even know who that is? And so, yes, today even includes the relationship you have with yourself, which is probably well, other than your relationship with the divine, relationship with yourself is number two in my book. And we will preface this, as you always like to say, that these are our thoughts, our opinions, that we share. And please take what resonates and leave the rest. share out, like, and keep joining
Subscribe.
us. Subscribe. Thank you. That's the other word I was looking for. Uh, for those people that might be struggling with some relationships, and share this video out and let them listen, and maybe something that you didn't pick up on, they'll pick up on, and vice versa. And then you guys can talk about it.
Love it.
So, would you like to begin, or would you like me to begin?
Well, you know what? It's moment of presence, not shockingly delightful. What I am going to say is you need to turn your volume down a little bit because I at least hear myself through your microphone. So I don't know if that's coming through for anyone else, but cool. Now let's stop. Since it's moment of presence, why don't you kick us off? And I'll just,
Okay.
chime in.
So, how many times have you heard people say that this person or that person has to change in order for the relationship to be successful?
I couldn't even come up with a number.
Big myth.
Well, hold on. It may also be worded as, well, if they would just do this, everything would be fine. If they were just this way, everything would be fine. If they just
Right.
acted this way, everything would be fine. That's what I hear a lot, which essentially is the same thing, but that I've heard for years from so many different people.
It would be the perfect relationship if only.
Yeah.
And here's the thing: when we work on ourselves, we bring a different self to the relationship, which then can impact the relationship the way you want it to.
Mm-hmm.
But as a wise woman said to me years ago when I was much, much younger, in my teenage years, my mother said, if you are going into a relationship thinking that you're going to change the other person, that's not the person for you.
Yeah.
And so you should be able to accept the good, bad, and indifferent parts of a person because that is who they are
Mm-hmm.
at the moment. It doesn't mean that they're not going to change, but that is their journey and it's up to them to change, not for you to try to change them.
Yeah. Well, and I think change is guaranteed. I think it's that,
Absolutely.
just to elaborate on it a little bit more, because yes, I agree wholeheartedly. It's that change and growth should be a happy evolvement in somebody that happens when you're with them, when you have a relationship with them, and that's not even romantic necessarily. But if
Mhm.
you're going to be spending time with somebody and having a relationship of some sort, there is going to be change. That's inevitable. But and that change is either going to fit with who you are and work with who you are, or it's not. But to your point, you can't go in expecting that. There's a big running joke of online of like, I can change him, I can fix him, and it's like that's so incredibly. I'll even use the word toxic to have that mindset, because who are you to decide that that person needs to change? Number one, who are you to decide that that person needs to be fixed in some way?
Right.
Um, and they need to be accepting of that right back to you as well, because it's also sort of implying that somehow you're the one that's perfect, when that nobody's perfect. That's the farthest thing from the truth.
Well, and I think that's a great place to start is having expectations.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we come into any relationship with expectations, one, they can be discussed first, 12, 12. They can be discussed first so that you have similar expectations that match, right? And so that you can support each other's expectations. Like if it's a new position, I expect this from you and you can expect this from me, and what are your expectations? And so you do that so that you can have successful expectations, right? You can manage them the right way.
Well,
In
and
a
it's
re
also real quick what you're describing. You know what? I lost my train of thought. Sorry. Go on.
I was going to say, I guess negotiations. uh,
It came in and went out. I'm sorry, everyone. I have a little bit of a tinge of a headache. Please excuse me.
that was fast. It just, boom. It was like
Oh my god, it was there.
um
the next second,
Well,
man.
when
Yeah,
it comes back,
I'll
just
let you
like
know.
make sure. Yeah. So, having expectations, and when I talk to clients about this, when you really think about what are expectations, when you put an expectation on someone else, what is that really?
I mean, it's something that you want. Is that what you're
Well,
what?
yeah. Well, it's also, like you said, like a judgment. Because if you're expecting them to step up to a certain level, does that mean that you think you're at that level? Like, so
I don't
what?
I mean, I think that yes, in some cases, but like if I expect someone to have the basic decency to do something a certain way and they do it differently, I mean, I guess judgment is an outcome of not reaching
Mhm.
the expectation, but I wouldn't say that they're one and the same.
No, but they work together.
Yeah,
So
I
if you have expectations, you're going to have judgments, or you're going to have judgments which create potential expectations. And then you get into this loop of what comes first when you're not being in the relationship. You're not being in the moment with that person.
yeah.
And, you know, who's bringing what, and at any time, that's going to even change. Sometimes in a relationship, this one person may be the stronger person, and then this person may be the stronger person. It just really depends. It's about the ebb and the flow.
Mhm.
And so same thing with expectations.
Yeah. Well, and I think what connects directly with what you're saying, and I think this is actually what I had thought of before, is what goes right along with that is the saying that you never really know someone truly or even remotely until 3 months in, because someone can't keep up a charade longer than 3 months, 4 months typically. And so, whether that's dating or you have a new boss or a new friend or whatever it is, you may very well set expectations for what has been presented to you so far in the relationship, and then all of a sudden things are different and you're not sure why. um, and it's because you had these expectations of the person that you met originally. So same thing goes for your own behavior. If you start a new job and you're going through the interview process and you're like the super bubbly, super kind, super nice sweetheart, and then they're going to have that expectation of you in the role, and then 3 4 months in, or however long it takes to not be able to uphold that persona that you've created.
Mhm.
Your boss and your coworkers may be like, who is this person? Like, I don't know this version of this person. Because
Right.
maybe when you're actually at work, you're hyper focused, and you're maybe not so bubbly, and you're more straightforward and to the point. And so I think that's a really interesting conversation. Like, we could probably have a whole conversation just on relationship expectations, and
Yeah.
how that plays into so many different facets of a relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a very complex conversation, because again, when you expect people to do or act a certain way,
Mhm.
then you know who are you
Mhm.
to expect that from them?
Yeah.
They should want to do the things with you. You should want, like, this should be a conversation, yes, and we want to do this together. We want to uh, create these goals, achieve these goals together, whatever it may be, but it has to be created together so that you're both on the same page. Because if you're on different pages, then it's not going to work. Whatever kind of relationship you have.
Yeah. And I think a lot of contention in relationships comes from having these expectations and constantly getting frustrated by them, instead of just recognizing that, what, this person is just not capable of meeting my expectations. I should find someone who that's a natural thing for them, because everybody has different expectations, different opinions on how relationships should be. Again, whether that's romantic, whether it's friendship, whether it's a
Hmm.
career, you're with your kids, whatever it is, Now, obviously, you can't find new kids, so that one's a little bit trickier. But that's more about probably refining behavior. But especially in romantic relationships, as people get in these relationships, and let's say you've been in a relationship with someone for 3 years, and the next logical expectation is to get engaged. Well, maybe that other person, that's not their expectation. And so now we have this point of contention where neither one of you are on the same page. Maybe this person doesn't even want to get married. And instead of finding somebody who does, these two people now stay in a relationship for another 3 years. And now resentment's building on both sides because this person doesn't want to get married and
Mhm.
this person does, or this person doesn't want to have kids and this person does, whatever it is. And so there's something to be said about holding yourself in a relationship because you're afraid that maybe it's that you're never going to find anyone else, that maybe you
Mhm.
think this is the best that you can get, whatever it is.
Right.
And that is for sure with careers too. I mean, how many people stay in horrific jobs because, well, I mean, they do pay me really well. Okay, but you're being emotional, like you're being verbally abused every day. Yeah,
Right.
but I'm so much more fortunate than other people. Like, at least I have a job. And I mean, they
Right.
are paying me okay. I mean, instead of, going out, reaching out to other companies, looking at what's available, finding something that's more suitable because
Mhm.
it may very well be that you guys are just not a fit to work together, and that's
Right.
okay. And so there's so much frustration, I think, in people in not wanting to accept that just two people, two energies can just
Mhm.
simply not be a match, and that
Right.
that's okay.
And it may be that it's not a match right now.
That's
So the energies that you're giving off, your frequencies aren't matching right now, but it doesn't mean that you might not align at some other point.
absolutely.
Um,
Real quick, if
we,
you're
we,
joining us, send, comment, let us know that you're here. If you want to join the conversation, comment with your thoughts, and we'll kind of bring you into the combo.
yes, and we're talking about relationships.
Hmm.
Uh, we talk about, we hear about this in friendships, and I had this experience last night. You are friends with a person, and you see each other all the time, and then all of a sudden you don't. Life happens,
Yeah.
and maybe it's been 20, 30 years. Maybe you only see each other in passing, and then all of a sudden you come together and you sit down like I did last night, and literally it's been 44 years since me and this beautiful amazing soul have been able to sit down and have a conversation like we did when we used to have sleepovers.
Yeah.
And it was three, sorry, there's like this bug in here. It was 3 hours and we didn't stop talking, and we probably could have gone another 3 hours if the restaurant was not trying to close. um but it was just this, it was like
Yeah.
no time had passed by in the feelings and
Yeah.
the energy,
Yeah.
yet we're much older than we were when we were 11.
Right.
um
And this is a beautiful example of, so how many, so 40 something years ago, obviously you both have grown. You both
yeah,
have gone your separate ways in some respect.
yeah.
We've stayed in touch, but you've gone your separate ways. You've had your separate experiences. You've
Hmm.
grown in different ways, changed tremendously in different ways, and yet you're still compatible as friends. And that's the very positive and wonderful thing about
Right.
growth and changes and transitions in relationships, is when you are able to grow, maybe not together, but grow at the same pace where you can still relate to one another. That's not always the case, especially if you're doing work on yourself, internal work, you're growing, you're
Hmm.
trying to be a better person. A lot of times we talk about how people will fall away. You no longer feel, like you can relate to the people that
Right.
you once did. But this is a beautiful example of you both have grown completely separate from each other, had different experiences, and yet you're still energetically a match for each other. And you're able to still
Hmm.
be friends, even though it's been 40 something years since your last
Right.
sleepover. So I think that's a really beautiful example and
Yeah.
perfect for this conversation today, because not everything has to be negative and heavy. There are amazing life transitions that can
Yeah.
happen, including in relationships.
Right. And a lot of even a lot of what we talked about last night was, um acceptance.
Hmm.
Like there's got to be unconditional acceptance to have good relationships,
Yeah.
right? And so you have to accept people for where they are
Mm.
at that moment, whether it's your kids, your husband, your boss, whoever it is.
Yeah.
That's where they are, and that's okay. And going back to don't try to change anything, your energy, that doesn't mean that you should stay stuck in your mud.
Hmm.
It just means that you keep growing, and that person's either going to want to, hey, I want to come too,
Yeah.
and ask you what you're doing,
Hmm.
or they're going to catch up eventually
Yeah.
if you're meant to be on the same path,
Yeah.
whether again career whatever. But if it is a romantic relationship, if it's meant to be, it's going to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
It may
I have,
not be right now, but
yeah. And I have, so I have a great example for this. So my best friend in the world, and this is a great example. Let me preface this a little bit more. This is a great example of you also have the choice, and you saying, you're either going to be a fit or you're not, you're either going to match or you're not. You also have the choice to let something bother you or not. You
yes.
have the choice of going, you know what? I know this about this person. I love them anyway. They're important to me. So I'm going to overlook this thing and find a way to be okay with it because it's really not hurting me in any way. Is it annoying? Sure. But I love them enough that I'm going to figure out how to not let it bother me anymore.
Hmm.
So I have my best friend in the world. She's not a great texter. She'll admit to that. She's gotten a lot better, but she is very much the type where she'll get involved in something and completely forget about a text message. And when we were teenagers, it would bother me so badly because of stuff that I was going through. So I was feeling like she wasn't paying enough attention to me. And at a couple points, I even considered like, are we really friends? Like, does she really care about me? And I went through this whole drama in my head.
Hmm.
Then I think we went up to her family's house for vacation, and I realized that she literally leaves her phone somewhere and walks away and goes and does something. She literally genuinely does not have her phone with her, and I realized that it has absolutely nothing to do with me. Number one, and number two, you know what? She is somebody that I can talk to about anything, who's always there for me. Am I really gonna let her not texting me back right away, be something that ruins the friendship? No. And so being able to see that and figure
Hmm.
out what else could be happening here. We actually just had a conversation about it not too long ago where I told her that I'm like, listen, it used to bother me. I'm very, very sure on on our friendship nowadays. I know where I stand. I know where you
Hmm.
stand. Like, you're good. You don't have to worry about that with me. And it was a great conversation because we both got to
Hmm.
kind of share our thoughts on it. But that's a really simple, basic example, but something that a lot of people are bothered with in relationships too,
Hmm.
especially in romantic
Absolutely.
relationships. I mean, how often do we hear of, especially when people start dating, well, he's not texting back. I haven't heard from him. I know
Hmm.
I used to do that all the time. Okay, well, is that something, what can we look at in this situation? What more is going on here? You guys just started talking, so maybe, that's understandable. If you're 6 years into a relationship and that's happening, how's the rest of the romantic relationship? Is that a hill that you want to die on? And maybe for some people it is.
Right.
Maybe for some people it isn't. And so it goes back to those, like you were talking about, expectations. What are you willing to be okay with? How, what are the trade offs here?
Yeah.
Because I guarantee those people aren't perfect either.
Well, and it's what else is going on? Like, it is that part of their personality? Is that something that is affected by who they authentically are?
Right.
I can sometimes become a little like a mad scientist and forget what's going on because I get so focused into something else, and maybe I don't look at my phone or have my ringer off or what have you. Um, Hence last night, because I was so enthralled in the conversation that I didn't look at my phone, which is one of the things that everyone is talking about. Is if you're in a conversation with a person, like, don't have your phone on the table. So I've been practicing that, except I didn't communicate that to anybody.
Yeah.
So that might have been helpful to communicate that I've been trying to really hard to be present in the moment and keep my phone away from conversations. However, my point is that it's accepting the person for who they are and knowing that it's not that anyone's trying to hurt each other.
Mhm.
It's just the way a person functions, right? I may be messy. My husband accepts me for being messy. Not dirty. The house is not dirty. It's just there's things out
Yeah.
of place.
You
Um,
lose something somewhere, but here's the thing. This is such a great example. Another great example of a positive situation. Yes, you will leave something on the counter. Some people would get absolutely bothered by it and let it ruin their relationship. What does
right.
your husband do? You don't see this. I do. Is let's say you leave something on the counter that he has to put away. What does he do? He goes, I love this woman. She's a pain in my ass, but I love this woman so much. That's his reaction to it. Was that always his reaction? Probably not. I'm sure you guys have
No,
talked about it when before I was even born. But
absolutely.
that is something that for him is not a deal breaker. That is something
Right.
so small and minuscule for him because of the rest of the relationship that you guys have cultivated. But for somebody, that could be a deal breaker. Maybe it's someone who's like super
Mhm.
intense and crazy about being, tidy and all of those things. So it's so much about relationships is compatibility. And it is okay when you just are not compatible.
And the work that you do doesn't have to be the work on someone else.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, if your relationship is on the rocks, don't think that you have to drag the other person into relationship therapy or have these serious conversations. It may be that the things that are triggering you
Mm-hmm.
are things that can be adjusted within you so
Mm-hmm.
that you're actually more compatible in the relationship, just like my husband has worked on himself so that me leaving something on the counter doesn't trigger him the same way.
Right.
Therefore, it makes it a more peaceful environment.
Absolutely.
And so that is a huge thing.
Yeah.
There was a time where, and I mean, why not? We've been together for, I don't even know, 37 years, 39 years. There was a time when he would play softball like 4 nights, 5 nights out of the week when I was raising the kids.
Mm-hmm.
It would drive other people batty. Like I had friends that were like, I don't know why you put up with this. How much longer are you going to put up with this? First of all, you're judging my relationship
Mm-hmm.
and what I've agreed upon,
Mm-hmm.
number one,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not right.
Yeah.
If that's not right for you, that's fine, but don't judge me.
Mm-hmm.
And two, I married him going in knowing that he surfed and played softball and did
Right.
this and did that and didn't like to be home. And that was just the way things were. And I accepted that.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I that was who I married.
Yeah.
I'm not going to try to change him. I'm not going to be that wife that goes, "Well, we're married now. You have to stay home." Eventually, he made that decision on his own.
Yeah.
And now he likes to stay home and I kind of have a bug to go out. So,
An office reference, which this is an office reference. We had this conversation yesterday. Oh, how the turntables. Obviously, I know
yes.
the correct phrase of the the way to say it, but another example of this, or maybe even a even more fitting example of what you were saying before that story is those times when you're talking to someone about their relationship or a boss or a friendship, and it's
Mhm.
like, well, they're not doing this, and so if they want to keep me as a girlfriend, boyfriend, friend, employee,
Right.
whatever it is, then they need to be doing more of this. And what I love to do, and maybe this pisses people off, sorry, is I go, well, what are you doing to you know do that back for them? Well, it shouldn't just be my responsibility. But can you see how neither of you are applying any effort here?
Right.
So in a romantic relationship, that might look like, well, he never wants to go out for dinner. What do you ask to go out to dinner?
Right. Have you mentioned it?
Or in a friendship, well, she never calls me. Well, do you call her? Or at work,
Mhm.
well, they never recognize my good work. Do you recognize theirs? So it goes both ways. And so
Mhm.
often, so many points of frustration in relationships that I hear of, neither party is contributing in the way that they want it. They want to be contributed back to.
Well, and hold up, because if you need somebody to validate you doing a good job or celebrating you, or there was something that you had said that made me think of this, then you need to take a look inside,
Yeah.
because you have to be okay with yourself and bring your best self into a relationship. And when you do that and you're not expecting the other person, look how great you are, and you can just be great,
Mm-hmm.
then all of a sudden there's going to be a shift in the relationship the
Yeah.
way you want it to go.
Yeah.
But you have to believe in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be able to keep yourself. How many times have we heard, well, I'm in a good mood, and then all of a sudden my boss walks in, and then they just ruin my whole entire day.
Yeah.
Okay, well, first of all, really? Your whole day? Your whole day is ruined because of one meeting. Really? Do you not know how to bounce back?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I love,
Mm-hmm.
bringing people to those aha moments of, it is not the other person's responsibility to maintain your happiness, your energy, your vibe.
Shout out,
That
shout
is,
delightful from yesterday.
yeah, that is all on you to
Yeah.
do that. You have to take radical responsibility for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And when you can do that and maintain the level where you want to live and how you want to live, and what you want to be and how you want to be, you bring more to a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just love the fact when people talk about, well, maybe we need therapy. Maybe only one person needs to start working on themselves, and then the relationship changes.
Mm-hmm.
And that can go mom to kids, you
Mm-hmm.
know? You can't change your kid. Like you had mentioned it earlier, and the first thing that came to mind was, the kid that colors outside of the lines, and you're like a perfectionist. You can't change. You can't do that to your kid. What are you going to do? Berate them because they're going outside of the lines? That's how they see the world.
Yeah.
So if you're going to put your beliefs on them, what are you going to do to them?
Yeah. What I think is so interesting in parent child dynamics is when parents raise their kids to be independent thinkers and then get upset when they have a thought or an opinion that's different from theirs. That
Right.
always makes me chuckle a little bit. Um, Very often, that doesn't happen as much because usually those that are very independent in thinking tend to raise those that are also independent in thinking, which means then
Mhm.
they're gonna just naturally have, the same ideals and stuff like that. But personality wise, it can clash because those are two very strong personalities. And so when you're
Mhm.
living under the same roof, you either figure out how to make it work, or your kid moves out at 18 or even younger in some cases.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So I let's talk about when the relationships do start changing. And so maybe what does that look like? That looks like you don't necessarily feel like the relationship is as strong as it once was. You don't
Mhm.
feel like you click with the person. Maybe
Mhm.
conversation's not as easy as it used to be. Maybe you guys are showing interests that are different from each other. You're not interested in doing the same sort of activities together that you once did. What else? Can you think of anything else?
Um, you just don't feel the same spark.
Mm, yeah.
I mean,
Maybe you
people
get in fights more often. Yeah.
that what?
Like you're
Oh,
getting in fights with them more often, and that could be friendship,
yeah,
career, romantic, anything.
right, right. And so I think, when those things happen, you have to take a take a step back and you have to go, okay, is this something that's happening for right now? And take that 30,000, foot view. And is this something that's happening just right now?
Mhm.
Is there something else going on?
Mhm.
And you start getting curious, not judgmental, not expecting, but you get curious. What else is going on in either the world or in that person's world
Mhm.
that might make them be reacting differently?
Mhm.
And then how can we get back to responding? And so it's okay if people have different interests. That's fine, but come together and talk about those interests together.
Mhm.
It's okay for you to have different opinions, different beliefs on things.
Mhm.
Respect each other's differences, respect each other's beliefs, talk about it, be interested. And I always like the saying, are you in the conversation to win the conversation or to be happy and enjoy the moment,
Yeah.
right? The
Yeah.
enjoy the conversation.
Well, it's also, are
But if
you listening to hear them or listening to respond?
well, that's
Whole other.
that's a big one.
Yeah.
That's a whole other thing. And that's a big deal. And that goes back to the inner work, because if you're listening to respond, then you're trying to prove something.
Yeah.
Whether you can one up them,
Mhm.
or you feel like you're enough and you've got to prove it.
Yeah.
And so again, that goes back to working on yourself.
Yeah.
And when you work on yourself, then that conversation is going to start changing. And so it's really not the relationship that's not working. It's how the two of you are interacting.
Yeah. And to expand on that a little bit more is what I would suggest for those that find that you're feeling like something's off in a relationship, or you're worried that a relationship is over. And again, this is romantic, friendship, career, with anybody, is give yourself time to identify what it is that is bothering you about that relationship. So let's say it's romantic. That's I feel like the easiest one to do. I just feel like we don't click anymore. Okay, take a few days and pay attention to when that feeling comes up for you. Or
Mm-hmm.
let's say it's, well, we're just fighting all the time, or I just feel like we're just not a match anymore. Pay attention for a few days at when that's coming up for you, because very often you would find that maybe it's that you get triggered whenever that other person gets mad.
Mm-hmm.
And we could look at it and go, well, that they must be, that other person must be this, and this way. They must get mad
Right.
way too often. Let's look a little bit deeper. What does that, because feeling angry, getting upset about something is a very
Mm-hmm.
natural human emotion. We can't just say, well, I only like this person when they're happy. That's not very
Right.
fair. It's not fair.
Not
So
fair.
let's take a look at that. What emotions come up for you when, let's
Mm-hmm.
say, that other person gets angry or sad or whatever it is? Well, it makes me feel insecure, like I did something wrong.
Ah,
There we go.
bingo.
There we go. Now we
Right.
have now we have somewhere to go with that. So why does now it's
Mm-hmm.
exploring, why does them getting upset cause me to feel insecure? And now that's something that I can explore. That's something that I can work on. Because again, to your point, it is never about the other person. And we touched on this yesterday on Shockingly Delightful. Nothing is ever about the other person, because what we experience is wholeheartedly what we attract into
Yeah.
our experience.
Because nobody can make you feel a certain way unless you're allowing it. And
Absolutely.
so if you're feeling like, well, they're mad and it must be my fault, something that I still have to deal with sometimes, because somebody will be upset and I'm like, oh my God, what did I do? And what did I leave something out on the counter?
You need to tell yourself, it's not me. It's not me. I
It's not me.
cannot
It's not
say enough
me.
how much of a good strategy that is. If you're someone who feels like something is
It's not
always your
me.
fault, people are always upset with
Yeah.
you, get in the habit of literally all day, every day, anytime you feel triggered, even if it is about you. It's not me. It's not me. It's not me. You will very quickly not have that emotional reaction anymore. That's what I'll
Well,
say.
and one of the other things that I coach clients on is asking the curious questions of, is this even mine?
Yeah.
So you are feeling sad.
Hmm.
Is it yours? Or are you picking that up from the relationship?
Right.
And the
And that's going to
relationship,
happen the closer you are with someone. The closer you
absolutely.
are with them, the more often that's going to happen. So of course that's going to be so incredibly prevalent, especially with people in your household. Even if you have a roommate that you're not that close with, you guys are sharing an energy space. So that's going to
Mhm.
happen.
Yeah. And I mean, even with our dogs, right? I mean,
With
with animals.
coworkers,
I
you're in an
mean,
office together 8 hours. Even if you're not in a physical office and you work from home, you are in the energetic space of the business together.
Mhm.
That's still, you're intimate on a certain level. So it gives you access to emotions you otherwise might not think that you have access to.
And by the way, and that could be a whole other topic, but businesses have energetic footprints
Absolutely.
too.
Yeah.
And so, not only is it how are you showing up as an employee,
Hmm.
but how is the boss showing up?
Yeah.
How is the business functioning?
Mhm.
What's happening? And if the energy of the business is not right and aligned, guess what? If you are trying to attract clients or customers or sales or whatever, if that energy is not right, you're going the opposite way and repelling.
Hmm.
And that's why it's so important that it's not things are not always what they seem. And that's why it's so, instead of pointing fingers, getting curious is so much better. Um, to go back to your point though on thinking about when you're feeling a certain way, and kind of jotting it down and writing it down, and observing,
Hmm.
that's super important. The other thing is that if you're not happy, it may be because you're not happy and you're not asking for what you need.
Yeah.
But one this amazing technique is write down all the reasons why you're grateful
Hmm.
for the other person. Like,
Hmm.
what are the good pieces?
Absolutely.
Because there's good in everybody, right? We weren't born bad people. Like, if there's a bad person in your life, they were not born that way. They
Well, and
were created.
most people are also, I'll use the word programmed to harp on the negative. There might be 100 reasons to be absolutely just love somebody, but
Mhm.
that one pebble in your shoe can ruin it for you if that's all you're focused on.
And if you've ever had a pebble in your shoe,
Oh,
it is all you focus on until you get the pebble out. And one of the best ways to do that, other than taking your shoe off and emptying the shoe, is to look at the positives. Look at, we talk about red flags. It's looking at those green flags. What are the right things about that person, or not the right things, because that's a judgmental term, but the good things.
yeah.
What are the things that you
That
like
you
about the
like. Yeah.
person, that you love about the person, whether if it's a marriage, what did you fall in love with?
Hmm.
Because that's still inside somewhere.
Yeah.
But what has happened to that person to bury some of those attributes?
Hmm.
Because if you married an authentic person, or are you're in a relationship with somebody who was at some point authentic, that's is still in there.
Yeah.
It's just buried under muck
Yeah.
and stuff that's happened to them.
Yeah.
And so are you going to be the person that walks away, which you may have to for a while because they need to do work on themselves?
Yeah.
Or could you maybe make some suggestions to bring? I was talking to somebody about this the other day. They said they go out to lunch with this group of people, and there's this one person who's just very negative. Like, they don't have a great life. They're just very negative, but they don't want to have this person be alone.
Hmm.
And so I was like, well, what could you do at lunch that would prevent her from telling the same stories
Hmm.
that are so negative?
Yeah.
And so we talked about trying a technique of having topics to discuss,
Yeah.
right? So you're guiding the conversation away from her negativity and bringing in some fun and some positivity. And we even talked about like some of those fun games, where like the get to know you games and things like
Yeah.
that. Like, do something out of the ordinary, do
Yeah.
something different,
Right.
and bring those pieces out of that person. That person may have such a good time that they go, where have I been?
Yeah.
you know?
Well, and even to translate that into career terms, and don't let me forget, I want to touch on the needs thing, but to translate that into career terms, I've experienced it myself where the boss that I met when I got hired was very different than the boss that I ultimately chose to leave a team from. Those two
Mhm.
people were very, very different. And I've stayed on a team a lot longer than I probably should have because I did keep looking at, okay, well, why is this person, acting and behaving this way? Well, they're stressed out. Things aren't being, performance isn't where it should be, blah, blah, blah. And so I, I chose to see and understand where this person was coming from. But then I
Mhm.
did get to a point, and that helped. But then I did get to a point where I said to myself, you know what? I'm just not interested in doing this anymore. It just doesn't fit with me anymore. I feel like I'm in a very different place. And in order to be what that person needs, I'm not willing to do that. So you know what? I'm choosing to remove myself from the situation, and that's okay. But at least I did it from a place, and actually we touched on this last week, but at least I did it from a place of knowing and being able to look at the whole picture and not just going, well, this person's a jerk, so I'm leaving. I was able to
Mhm.
look at it from a place of, okay, I understand why this is happening. I'll stick around for a little while and see if I can be helpful. And so I would think, what would make this person's life a little bit easier? And that's not doesn't mean taking on a whole bunch, of other projects. It's little things. I could, explain something a little bit differently in a different way,
Mhm.
or be proactive and do this and this because that'll take stress off of them. And so I would
Right.
try little things like that. And when I saw and got to a point where, you know what, I don't want to deal with this anymore, I'm not noticing any changes in them. In fact, it's actually getting worse. I'm going to remove myself because I'm not going to change this person. It's just not a fit anymore. And so,
Mhm.
career wise, that's how that can look. But I also wanted to circle back to because you briefly mentioned needs. And I think, particularly, looking at the basic needs. There's a chart online. You can look it up. What are the basic needs of a human? That can be very, very telling in your life if
Mhm.
you are feeling like things are not working out anywhere. So,
Right.
romantic relationships are a great example because a lot of basic human needs are directly related to romantic relationships. Physical touch, for example, is a basic human need. And so, if you're
Mhm.
not getting the affection that you require, and that's different for everybody, but if you are
Mhm.
not getting the affection that you require, that can
Right.
drastically affect a relationship. If
Right.
you're feeling like your kids are eating you out of house and home and you don't have enough food for yourself, that's going to cause some issues in a relationship because the basic need of being fed becomes problematic.
Right.
Um,
Or
and
even providing.
right, or even, yeah, being able to provide. But there's so many ways that our basic needs can infiltrate into our relationships because of what we are not getting. And those were two kind of
Mhm.
basic, silly examples. But if you're feeling like life is kind of out of whack, take a look at that and take
Mhm.
a look at where are you not having your needs fulfilled, because I think a lot of people would be very surprised because sometimes it's the simplest things that we don't look at
Right.
that are the
And
devil in the shoe.
and looking at yourself and the priority of your needs,
Mm-hmm,
your love language,
mm-hmm.
the
Yeah,
other person's love language, so
absolutely.
that you understand,
Mm-hmm.
not accommodate, but understand where they're coming from. And why is it that when I bring flowers, that's not enough? Or why is it that if I clean the house, that's not enough? Like, I know my husband's love language is a clean house. So if he's upset, that's the first thing that I start doing is
Well, and it's so
cleaning the
funny.
house.
Yeah, and it's so funny because it's really easy. It's harder to see it in the moment than it is when you look back on something. So a great way to look at this and experiment with this, I'm so glad you brought this up, is looking back at your childhood
Right.
and looking back at how your parents showed love, because a lot of people
Yeah.
harbor a lot of resentment to their parents because, well, they didn't say I love you enough. But their love language may have been different. Not to, say that they shouldn't have said I love you more, but
Right.
maybe it's that they always, made sure that you had a full plate and they gave themselves the leftovers. That's showing love. Maybe they,
Hmm.
every time they went to the store and they brought you home a little piece of candy just because they knew that you loved it so much. That's them showing an act of love.
Hmm.
Maybe, with a wife and husband situation, maybe, the husband or the wife knows that the husband is really stressed out. And so her way of showing love is making sure that dinner's on the table before he gets home every day. Or the husband shows love by making sure that the dishes are done and the laundry's done and the kids are put to bed so the wife can have a break. Like, there's so many ways that people can show love.
Hmm.
And yet we sort of have been, again, I'll use that word, programmed to believe that if someone isn't operating in the way that we expect them to, bringing it full circle back to expectations, that there's something wrong in the relationship. So, even in career, maybe your
Hmm.
boss doesn't tell you how great of a job you're doing, but they constantly brag about you on meetings to people. Or,
Right.
or maybe they give you a raise way more often than you should, but they don't actually vocally say to you, wow,
You're
you're doing
doing a
a
great
great job.
job.
Or
Right.
they bring you a coffee every morning, just you, nobody else. Like, there's a lot of different ways that this can manifest, and in friendships as well,
Hmm.
beyond just a verbal saying. And so it really, so many things come down to just perspective and seeing things beyond just your own vision.
Yeah. And what I love about what you were saying, and it's how many people complain about, well, my husband or my boss or my wife or what, I never hear I'm sorry.
Mhm.
Well, but did they take you out to dinner? And
Now, see, this is, believe it or not, very controversial. People online have a
it
lot
is
of opinions about this.
it is.
Because
But
they
when
believe if
you
you don't say I'm sorry, that that's somehow emotional abuse. I'm completely on the page with you. I think that's, I'm sorry, I think it's a little
it
silly.
it depends on somebody's love language and their line of communication. And if their communication isn't the, and we actually did a whole show on the people that say I'm sorry too much,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
Well, there are people that just never say I'm sorry, yet their actions
Mhm.
speak way louder than yeah, I'm sorry, would, because they don't really necessarily mean it from a verbal standpoint, but they mean it from their heart.
Mhm.
I would much rather feel it from the heart
Yeah.
than hear it,
Mhm.
because
More
words
often
are
than not, yeah, more often than not, it's not even genuine when someone says it, let's be
e-
honest. Because
exactly
it takes a level of vulnerability that 98% of the population is not comfortable with. So you
right.
can't expect, how much would you be comfortable saying I'm sorry in certain situations? And so again, it all goes down to perspective. It's not all about us.
Well, and here's the other thing. If you have to wait for someone to say I'm sorry in order to let the situation go so that you can feel better,
Mhm.
that's another situation where you need to look internally and go, why are you holding on to shit?
Yeah,
You need to let that stuff go.
yeah.
Go watch Frozen.
You
Let it go.
Even better, I'm going to shamelessly plug you right now, as the kids say. If you are dealing with this and you're having constant issues in your relationships, whether that's with your spouse, your partner, your kids, your boss, your friends, whoever it is, you need a coach. Something like that, if you are constantly having relationship issues, that is indicative of you needing to do some internal work. And there's nothing wrong with that. We all do. It's not something to be shameful of.
Really?
But you need to find yourself a coach that you can trust. And honestly, yes, we're on Moment of Presence. Yes, you're sitting right here. But Michelle is a phenomenal coach and helps a lot of people with these things, because relationships are our entire life. Relationships are
Mm-hmm.
our entire world. Everything is so heavily dependent on relationships. So to just look at it as, well, I have trouble with relationships, but whatever. It's so prevalent in every area of your life.
Everything.
So if you are finding that you have issues with that, book a damn call or sign up for the Odonata community. I'm going to throw the link up. Just, I mean, come on. Let's take some accountability, some action, get some flow coming
Do
back into your
something to
life.
change it. Right. Do something to change it instead of continuing to complain about it. And here's the thing, if you're having the same type of relationship, the same type of person keeps coming into your life and you can't seem to get rid of that kind of personality, and we talked about this last week with careers, you're dragging the pattern into each relationship
Yeah.
that you have. So
Yeah.
you have to fix whatever's broken internally, or whatever has to be adjusted or tweaked or refined, so that you don't bring it into the next relationship and it doesn't do the same exact thing,
Yeah.
because that is a pattern. It's going to creep up, and until that pattern is broken, you're going to stay on the hamster wheel. And
Yeah.
so if you want off, I'll help you get off the hamster wheel. So,
And to do that, this link that's on the bottom right now is for mokshagrace.com/community. This is your monthly subscription that you're offering. Um,
yes,
it's coaching every single week, actually on Thursdays. Um,
tonight
it's incredibly affordable because you wanted to make it accessible to everybody.
I did.
Um, it's incredibly affordable. It's group coaching every single week, as well as, private community and monthly activities, stuff like that. This is like, if you're even interested remotely in coaching and you want to try it out, try it out. Go to mokshagrace.com/community, sign up. You can literally get started tonight. But if you're ready to just dive in and get your shit handled, then I'm going to pop another link up when it decides it wants to load. It's being slow today. mokshagrace.com/coaching is where you can go to actually book a compatibility call with Michelle, which is where you guys will talk about what's going on in your life. And she'll help figure out, what kind of coaching do you need?
Yep.
Do we need to, meet for 3 months? Do we need to meet for an extended period of time? Like, what is going on? What kind of help do you need? And she tailors the coaching to you. And that's something
Right.
that a lot of coaches unfortunately don't do anymore, because they are so focused on group coaching or launching a program or whatever it is, that you
Right.
don't get customized coaching to you. And a lot of people very well may need one-on-one customized coaching. And so if that's something that you're interested in, mokshagrace.com/coaching, and just get started already.
Yeah.
Because it's literally, like, I can't stress enough how much coaching can change your life when you start to get a hold of your own shit. And when there's
Yes.
somebody that's going to call you out on it, number one, because not enough people are doing that, because we've cultivated a society where we don't feel comfortable doing that. But to
Hmm.
have someone that's going to call you out on your shit, but also hold you accountable and help you see those other perspectives that you can't see, and the people close to you can't see either, because they're too close to the situation. They just
And
are.
they may not want to tell you because they don't want to hurt your feelings.
Right. They
But
don't
for
want you to
not
feel,
telling
yeah.
you, by not telling you, by not letting you work through it, now you're living in the same pattern, and it's on pattern repeat. And so it's so very important. We are going to have a lot of fun on Odonata tonight because of the assignment that was given last week, and it's how to raise your emotions. Um, and I don't want to give it too much away, but we're gonna have fun because tonight is we're gonna share what we came up with. So yeah. So anyway, I think that we should take a couple deep breaths because we've had a
Oh,
lot
yeah.
of conversation, and then I hope you reach out. So we're gonna do 3 big deep breaths. We're gonna hold at the top. We're gonna exhale everything that we've talked about. Just kind of let it sink into your heart, and just exhale what you don't want anymore. So big inhale and hold it for 3, 2, 1. Exhale. Let's do it again and exhale even slower. Inhale. 3, 2, 1. Exhale real slow. Just regulate your nervous system, helps bring it down. And another big deep breath in. And hold. And exhale. And with that, I'm spent. I'm kidding.
Thank you for having me on. It's been
I love having you on.
And I'm excited for the next 2 weeks of the same sort of life transition topics, but different. I can't recall what they are right this second. They are, oh, yeah. Next week is we're going to be talking about aging. That's going to be a fun
Ooh.
um, and I'll just go ahead and just say where everyone can find me. You can find me at wickedwisdomconsulting.com. I'm also on LinkedIn and stuff like that. But if you need help with your business operations, you need help running your business, you have projects that you just can't figure out, get in touch with me. Even if I'm not a fit, I have plenty of people in my network that I can refer you to because I'm not a fit for everybody, and that's perfectly okay. So look me up and let's get started and get your business where it needs to be. Michelle, where can they find you other than the links that we threw up a minute ago?
That would be mokshagrace.com and on social media anywhere. Just put in Moksha Grace and you will find me on LinkedIn and Instagram and YouTube and, Facebook, all those places, even Twitter and Rumble.
Mm.
So, yeah, get
It's been a
ready to
pleasure as always.
rumble. Yes, always. And I look forward to next week. And have a great rest of your afternoon.
You too.